All right, people starting to trickle in. Thanks to everyone who's joining us on the Zoom link, and welcome to all of those who are tuning in across our social media channels as well, across LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, etc. Great to see so many people tuning in on their lunch break. Really appreciate you guys taking the time for what should be a really interesting chat with Tom here, who is a former On Purpose associate. The aim of this session is really to continue our conversation that we had with Hannah Casey from On Purpose a couple of weeks ago about why the On Purpose Associate Programme could be a great escape route for you when considering your next career move. Applications for the October 22 cohort of the On Purpose Associate Programme close on the 16th of May, and there will be links in the Zoom chat boxes and in the social media chat boxes for you to click through for more information on applying and more information on the program itself. So On Purpose, just a reminder, is a community with a goal of developing leaders for purpose-driven organizations. It was founded in 2010, so they've been going for 12 years and have recently expanded from London to Paris and Berlin. They run the associate program that we're going to be talking about, providing professionals with practical work experience, training and mentoring to help them find work that aligns with their values and brings about an economy of profit and one that serves the well-being of all. So really excited to be joined by Tom Previte. Tom traded his job in as a managing director to become an On Purpose associate. Tom now works at Supercritical, helping companies reduce their carbon footprint, and co-hosts the Carbon Removal Show, which is a podcast exploring the world of negative emissions. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. Really great to have you for this little lunchtime chat.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks so much for having me. Having me here, guys. Really looking forward to it. And thanks for the very flattering introduction as well.
Yeah, it's always important to get that bit right. Yeah. But maybe I will use that as an opportunity to flick it over to you. If you could tell us a bit more about your background prior to making that leap onto the On Purpose associate program.
Yeah, of course. So I would have. Everyone's got their own route into work and education, then studying and work and jobs and whatever else. But I kind of had a slightly unconventional approach to my working career. I think I finished school, planned to go to university, but then ended up deferring my entry for a couple of years actually, because I found an internship initially at this small charity in London, which was a startup incubator for early stage businesses, supporting entrepreneurs facing barriers to work. So I just kind of got different roles and responsibilities in that job, and started really enjoying it and kind of getting more experience. And I ended up never going to university in the end because I started kind of taking on more responsibility and eventually became, the managing director of that organization, and ran that for about 3 years. Subsequently, after having my other experiences. So that was up until about 2020 or 2019. And really loved the experience I had there. Learned a huge amount when it comes to starting a small business and managing kind of operations and managing communities as well. But what I was really interested in come 2020 was climate. That was one of the big kind of interest areas for me. And I kind of was trying to figure out a way that I could, get more involved with the climate space. And one step led to another. And eventually I found myself on the On Purpose program, which for me was a great opportunity to, spend more time working kind of in impact, which is an area that I was really interested in kind of continuing to explore, but then also looking at the climate impact as well. Had a few other bits and bobs in between that and On Purpose, but that's kind of a very brief overview of my last 6 or 7 years of work.
Nice. And I should have said, sorry, at the beginning, if anyone has any questions, please do drop them in the Q&A box in the Zoom call. We'll have time for questions with Tom at the end and his journey through On Purpose. So please do drop those in on the social media channels as well. But that's an interesting intro, because it doesn't seem like you were sort of typically we speak to people who are very disillusioned in, say, like a more traditional corporate career path, but it sounds like you were actually quite fulfilled in the role that you were doing. So what led you to On Purpose? I'm curious about why you chose the program itself.
Yeah, no, it was, I kind of, it became apparent that my route had been slightly different from a lot of people that had perhaps done the program or considering the program. But for me, it still felt super relevant, even if I had spent time in, I guess, quote unquote, an impact industry. I was kind of in the charitable sector for the best part of like 4 or 5 years. So the reason why I picked On Purpose, I think, is because, well, one, for me, again, I didn't have like a formal kind of degree in anything beyond my A levels. And so it was a great opportunity, I think, for me to consolidate some of the learning that I'd taken in my business experience and charitable experience, and put it into like a program type opportunity. So for me, that kind of 12-month program with On Purpose, where they wrap around methodologies and frameworks that you can learn from, was really attractive to ground my knowledge, I guess. Secondly, as well, I'd spent time in kind of one side of the impact space, but it doesn't mean that I was good at impact across the board. Like, again, like I said, the climate stuff was really of interest to me. And although On Purpose doesn't specifically focus on climate, it focuses on impact more broadly. There is definitely a pretty core section which is around climate. And what I loved about the program actually was that you can kind of make it your own as well. You can dive into some of the areas that you're really more interested in through your own research, through your mentors and your coaches. And so expanding my knowledge of climate was something that was attractive, and On Purpose gave me that opportunity as well. And the final thing I think I should add is that prior to joining On Purpose, I actually spent 6 to 12 months working on a more consultancy basis for other organizations, like other startups and things. And it just became really clear to me from that short stint that like I needed to have a job or work that fulfilled like some other part of me, which wasn't just like being a profitable business. And so kind of through those shorter term, I guess, consultancy type roles I played, I just didn't feel fulfilled at all in them. And I guess in hindsight, that was another thing that made me want to make the switch and apply for On Purpose.
Nice. And so I guess following on from that, the obvious question would be that did On Purpose help you find that level of fulfillment that you were looking for and in the impact space, and help you develop those skills?
I think if I look back at my time, like I guess fulfillment's a pretty meaty word, but what On Purpose gave me over the 12 months was one, actually like the pleasure of having time to explore interests. What I really enjoyed was that like you get a lot of like opportunity to take part in workshops and training, which they do every Friday. And there's just like, we did like 50 topic, we explored like 50 different topics almost. That was just like, when do you get a chance to do that in your 20s or 30s or 40s? Like it was I felt very fulfilled from that perspective, like getting lots of interesting insights and like overviews of different industries and ways to have impact. The other thing as well, it really did, because my 2 placements that I had, so you get a 6-month placement and then another 6-month placement where you go and work or lead on a specific project or role for an impact organization. Both of my roles ended up being kind of climate orientated. And so for me, I got fulfillment in that I got real world experience in working on climate initiatives for certain companies. One was like doing a footprint piece of work. The other was doing some thought leadership around like investing and pensions and the net zero kind of implications of those. I guess it subsequently gave me confidence and like encouragement to then apply for more climate specific things once the program finished. So I would say that I did find fulfillment in various different ways. And also, like, you're with a cohort of 20 people who are all on a similar journey, and those people are like, what I really liked, I'm kind of going on a bit, but like what I really actually enjoyed about the program was it feels as though a lot of these things you apply for, it's kind of like a competitive thing once you get in. So you're like competing with your fellow associates or cohort, and it wasn't that at all. I got a lot of fulfillment from knowing that the other 20 people that I was with were all just kind of like going on a similar journey to me. Everybody had their own different end goal, and their own way of getting there. Some people didn't even have an end goal. They just were happy to be part of the process, but it didn't in any way feel competitive. And I think that was a really nice way for us to then connect with each other and form like proper friendships. So yeah.
That cohort element sounds really important. I think having that community of people to connect with and share a passion and an outlook on what you guys want to achieve in the impact space could be so important. And from On Purpose themselves, what support do you receive sort of throughout the program, and have they also, what support have you received on an ongoing basis since you've left the program?
Yeah, good question. So in terms of support as an associate, firstly we get, I guess if you imagine your week, you kind of have, as far as for my program, you were kind of working 4.5 days a week for your organization that you were placed within. And then every Friday you would get your training, which would be organized predominantly by the On Purpose team. So they would facilitate getting a speaker in to come and do a workshop on design thinking or climate change or something else like that. And so you get that support. The other piece was kind of having relatively regular check-ins. So I think it's like every quarter you'd have a check-in with your On Purpose team to just understand like how you're getting on, whether you're enjoying your placement, how fulfilled you feel in it, whether you think you're making an impact or not, where you could improve, that kind of stuff. And so there's some like quantifiable stuff there. The team is just really friendly anyway. Like I think On Purpose do a great job of bringing in team like members that are just you feel very comfortable with. I guess you kind of have to. If that wasn't the case, then it'd be kind of then it wouldn't be so great. But they are. They're all very like welcoming and supportive. And I guess the whole point of On Purpose is to develop these I guess impact leaders. And so the focus is on you guys, is on us when we're there. We also get mentors and coaches, which I can't tell you how helpful my mentors especially have been when I'm having like a challenge in my placement, and I can just bounce an idea of somebody that's kind of doesn't have any agenda beyond just like being there to speak to and to give advice. And so like the support I got there was really, really helpful as well. And the support that you get from your own cohort is always just as great.
Great. I can definitely double down on the praise for the On Purpose team. They are such a great bunch of people to work with. So I have no trouble believing that the level of support on the program is top notch. Someone's actually just jumped in on the Zoom Q&A for more information on those Friday sessions. I think you mentioned that you covered something like 50 topics across the year. What can you expect from those sessions, and what sort of content gets covered? I know you mentioned design thinking and climate change, but could you just touch on that a bit further?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so when I said 50 sessions, like so I think over the course of the year, we ended up having like close, because there's 52 weeks in the year, right? So we had close to 52 Friday sessions. Some weeks we'll have off because it's like a summer break, or we'll be off for Christmas. But each of those I guess sessions can be, I think for the first 6 months, we had them as like a pretty you get told in quarterly in advance what the sessions are going to be. But like, I think for just to give you a flavor, we would do one like half day session on design thinking. We had like a series of sessions on systems thinking. So if anyone like is familiar with that, a lot of like the stuff that we'll think about is around like thinking in systems. as well. So we'll do actually workshops with Tom Rippon, who's the CEO of On Purpose, for those, which are always interesting. We would then do kind of more specific sessions around, something actually which was an option, even as simple as like how to like assess the financial accounts of a business. May not, like, those, some of those were optional, but I think for anyone that's interested in setting up their own thing, or in some of their placements might be operating with small businesses, it's just really like, it's just a good introduction to that sort of stuff. So it ranges from like really practical to very high level, like systems thinking stuff. And they can be interactive. So you're doing like a live kind of workshop in person where you're all engaging in something, or it can be more of a kind of lecture style talk where you're taking notes and the speaker's kind of giving a presentation. Yeah, but they like it's not the thing that I would say there is like it's not every year that you get every Friday off in the afternoons to like learn something new. And I think that's one thing I miss. I've only been out of the program for a month and a bit now, but I definitely miss not having something like that at the end of a Friday, because it just puts you in a good space going into the weekend and kind of gives you some time to reflect on how the week's been.
Great, thank you for that. Raheem has jumped in with a question as well. You mentioned that both of your placements were in the climate change space, which happened to be an area that you were very interested in. How much flexibility is there in that? Was that by chance, or were you able to choose your placements to tailor them to your interests?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the whole kind of placement hosting stuff happens at the very start. So when you get accepted onto the program, you go through the application process. You get like a big list of the different placement hosts that will be the options for that year, and they give you like a 1-2 page summary of what it is they're looking for, what the project's going to be, and so you then kind of go through and you rate all of the projects that you're most interested in and the companies that you're most interested in working for, and then vice versa, they'll do the same thing. So based on your application and a CV and maybe the video, if they're still doing the video, they'll also kind of do like a matching system. So they try and match you as best they can. For me, I think I just made it relatively obvious that I was interested in climate stuff more than anything else. And I was fortunate in that I ended up getting kind of more climate related projects. But at the same time, there were people that were in my cohort that perhaps didn't get maybe like quote unquote their like preferred placements. And I don't think any, like, it's unlikely that you'll get your perfect 1 and 2. Actually, that's a good thing, because you end up kind of perhaps being one that you really wanted and one that you were kind of not so sure about, but a lot of people found that the one they were not so sure about was the better one, for various different reasons. And I think a lot of time you have flexibility in your role there because they know that you're going to be there for 6 months. You have, I guess, a bit of autonomy to kind of guide it where you think you'd like it to go as well. So if, for example, you really wanted something that was climate related and you didn't get it for your placement, you could end up actually kind of working with your placement to perhaps have a climate spin on it. So like it's not the be all and end all, that summary of what it is you'll do, because it will always change.
Cool, thank you so much. Now stepping back more broadly, I'm keeping you on your toes with the broad questions, but 3 key pieces of advice that you would give to someone who is considering making this change, or maybe eyeing the On Purpose deadline on the 16th of May and considering whether to apply. What would be those 3 key pieces of advice you would give?
Maybe I have 3 or 4, maybe. So the first thing I would say is, if you can, be clear on why you're making the change, whether it's a push factor or a pull factor. Like, are you doing it because you really just don't want to, like, you're really disenfranchised by the current industry that you're in? That's like a perfectly good reason for doing it, or is it because you have a really interesting, like, there's a pull there where it's like, I really want to get into the impact stuff. I think that's always helpful, especially when you're going through the interview process, to understand your why. like why it is that you're applying in the first place. That I'd yeah, be clear on the why, and spend some time thinking about that. Also, this is a kind of like, yeah, it's kind of a bit of a, yeah, I'll say it anyway, but like be clear on what it is that you want to get out of the year at the start, but then hold that lightly. So it'll probably change, but at least at the start, knowing at the beginning of the 12 months, if you get in, that you kind of have an objective. You know, you want to get one or two things, like you want to build a network in a certain industry, or you want to get work experience doing certain thing, you want to do a specific project, but then hold that lightly because it will probably change. So be open to that. Something else, a lot of people, I think, kind of weigh up the different options of like, do I do on purpose, or do I apply for a master's? Do I go and do an MBA? Do I do something else? What I loved about On Purpose, which was really beneficial kind of financially, was that you can imagine it as it's a really well-paid learning experience. You know, you're getting paid to learn essentially, and you don't get to say that very often, especially if you're kind of, yeah, considering applying for something else. And yeah, something that my mentor said to me, which I really liked when I was kind of trying to place myself within my first placement. He said, marinate in the uncertainty. It's a lot of, yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty naturally, you know, with something like an on purpose kind of program. You're working in two different companies. That's kind of a big change. You've got a whole cohort of new people that you're meeting. You're constantly in interesting new training sessions. So just like marinate in it, you know, enjoy it. It's this, someone said to me, it's the end of the beginning, was what we said at the very end of the program. So it's not like you do the 12 months, then you're done. It's like, it's the start of a much bigger process that you might be going down when it comes to like figuring out what impact you'd like to have in society, essentially. That was like, but yeah.
There was a lot of wisdom in there. I love that saying. And I agree, there's the stipend element of being paid, I think it's £23,000 for the year to benefit from all of that learning and experience is such a unique proposition for the program. And then in terms of the application and interviews, do you have any tips of people kind of going through and applying to the program?
Applications. Prepare, you know, for sure is one thing. The interview process it's really thorough. So and the team put a lot of like, because as an associate, you get the chance actually later on in the program to kind of help out with some of the interview processes, interview stages. And that I love. It's actually really, really cool, like a really neat thing that they do. But a lot of work goes into the interview process from On Purpose's side. So they're putting a lot of effort into preparing for these questions and to just like reciprocate it, like, because it's very obvious if you haven't prepared. So I would say, yeah, take your time, understand On Purpose and On Purpose's kind of mission, you know, On Purpose's objectives, why, you know, the kind of key things that they're core principles. Have I got anything else? It's something I would say is like, because I'm not sure if it's going to be online or not, but you know, you feel free to just like have pieces of information out so you're ready to use it. You know, it's not, you can have, like I said, a little prep, you know, like I've got a little prep sheet of paper here to just like jog your memory of a few things. Like that's something I suggest as well, because it can be kind of like a long day if you make it through to the other stages. So just yeah, carve out time to prepare, have stuff to hand if you need it. Yeah, I can't give away too much.
Yeah, I was strictly told don't give away too much on the interviews, but those are very practical tips. So thank you for that. Any final questions from the audience, please do drop them into the Q&A, because this has been so insightful from Tom, and a great opportunity for you to tease out any more information that you might want about the On Purpose program. Mirna has picked up on something that you said earlier about people not quite getting their first choice placements. And those placements that aren't your favorite end up being the most impactful. Could you touch on why you think that might be the case? It's a tough question, but interesting one.
It's a great question. It's kind of I think so. For example, like I can't remember, like one of my cohorts got I think was looking for something in I guess maybe climate, and they got something which was very much like social transport mobility. And they I think initially were kind of like, wasn't sure if I wanted this, but then I guess like they ended up, and they'd never done it before, like they ended up getting that placement, which was at a charity, working, having impact, which was very much like on the grassroots level of impact. And I don't think they'd ever experienced that before. They'd only had experience in like the macro impact level. So kind of, a few steps removed from that grassroots level of kind of change. And it just was an eye opener for them. They kind of like, someone that had come from a corporate background that kind of ended up being placed within this, smaller charity, having, driving change through, individual to individual. It's just a big step change. And I think kind of being thrown into situations like that, where they thought they may not have kind of enjoyed, they may not have thought they were going to enjoy it, ended up really enjoying it, just like challenges your thinking a bit. So a lot of the people I think that enjoyed the ones that they thought they wouldn't enjoy were the ones that had placements that were like so different from anything that they were used to previously, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you. I hope, Minna, that answers your question. And thank you for dropping that one in. We've got time for a couple more, I think, before we have to sign off. But Danilo has a question about how you can overcome a lack of experience in the sustainability and impact areas as they become more and more sought after in job descriptions these days, saying that he's received no after no for jobs, and the reason is a lack of experience in this field, even for entry-level positions. How can make background and extensive experience count in their favor in this career change path?
Yeah, I guess I've had a bit of that myself. Like I wanted to transition into climate work, but I didn't have any formal training or work experience in it. And so like, I guess, well, one, I was lucky that I had that On Purpose, it was an opportunity for me to get some experience. I was able to get like, close to 12 months of work experience within kind of climate related roles. The thing that I would say on that front to you, Danilo, is there anything else that you can do outside of your kind of, I guess, 9 to 5 that might put you in a good position? Something which I ended up doing was starting this podcast called The Carbon Removal Show, which was a chance to kind of learn a lot about an industry, carbon removal, which I really had no knowledge on beforehand. But I started that knowing that, one, that would be an interesting opportunity to get me kind of experience and increase my connections, which I think is quite an important thing, and open up some opportunities. And eventually I found this opportunity at Supercritical, which is where I work now, which I think is thanks to my On Purpose 12 months, as well as my kind of carbon removal podcast, because we work in carbon removal. So there was strong relevance there. So I think, like, is there any volunteering that you can do on climate related kind of activities in your local area or online even? There's a bunch of communities that you can join as well. I would shout out like Climate Action Tech is a good example of like an online climate community. They're like a Slack group. I would just do some research, like join communities. Sometimes it's kind of quite important just to like kind of get an in with somebody, like have a conversation. That's something I would say, like just go for coffees. If you want to work in the space, the best thing you can do is probably chat to people who are doing that thing and ask them, like perhaps somebody else that's got more experience, like, how have you found working in the space? How did you get into it? What do you have any advice for me? That kind of thing. Like just network around. I think that's a really good thing that you can try and do, even if it's virtually or in person.
Great. Thanks so much. I hope that answers your question, Danilo. There's a lot of great insights there. And we've got time for one final one from India, who has chimed in with more of a logistical question. Was a lot of the learning online or in person? And separately, how receptive were new colleagues on your placements to On Purpose associates? I really like that question.
Yeah, good questions. So the first one, I think for us, it was I think, so I joined, it's April 2021 is when I had my first session. So we were still in the third lockdown or just coming out of it. So the first quarter was pretty much all online. And then come summertime, we then switched to kind of a hybrid of half online, half in person, where we'd meet at like a central London location that was kind of like convenient for everyone to get to. On Purpose had this like a couple of really good locations that you can link up in, where we do in-person training. And then, so it was kind of, I would say towards the end, we then ended up meeting up as frequently as we could. So I think the last quarter, so this quarter just gone, I think we were most of the time we were in person. Some sessions are better suited to being online, others are better suited to being in person. So it was definitely a hybrid. And I think they're continuing that hybrid approach. But a lot of people that couldn't make it, for example, there was an option to tune in virtually if it made sense. And the other question, how receptive are employees? Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. Like a lot of people don't, especially if you're going to join a bigger company. So for me, I joined a small 10-person consultancy at my first placement. And then the second placement, I joined a 50,000 person company. And so it was really, and I really wanted to get some corporate experience actually, because I hadn't had it before. So I really liked kind of the experience I had there. Not everyone's going to know what an on-purpose associate is at that size, of course, because it's just not possible. But a lot of people are really curious. That's the thing that I would say is like a lot of people are very interested. It's like, oh, what's this on purpose thing that you're doing? And some of the time people will actually ask you, like, can you tell me more? They might be interested in applying, that kind of thing. People, for me at least, were generally very welcoming and very curious. And I kind of made some really good connections off the back of that. The thing to bear in mind is you're only there for 6 months, right? So there's only so much of an impact you can have and so many connections you can make. But people are generally more curious about you and why you're there and where you're coming from. So I would embrace that.
Great, thanks so much. Again, hope that answers your question, India. That was a great one. Sorry, I lied. I'm going to have one more question because Raheem has chimed in with some great ones here. And it's so good to see all of this engagement too from the audience. So thank you for asking so many questions. How much help do associates receive in order to start a new career in an impact field? Yeah. That's so post. Okay. So for the last quarter, the last like 3 months of our training was very much kind of, there was a focus on helping you figure out your next steps. So we would do sessions on we'd have fellow associates that have years gone by come in and give us talks, and kind of what I'm doing now in a way, and saying like, this is what I did. This is the advice I have for you guys if you're looking to get a job elsewhere. The second thing to note is that there are other specific sessions on improving your CV, the best way to do outreach, all this and all that for people that are, when you're trying to apply for jobs. I started applying for roles, I think, a couple of months before the end of my program. Yeah. And On Purpose encourage you do that.
And also it's clear that the placements also know that you're going to be doing that. So they give you a bit of time, at least my one did. So that was useful. There's also constantly like jobs being shared on our Slack community. So, on purpose associates or fellows are going to be working within other companies that will be hiring. So they'll kind of share it. And it's always nice to have a little in there. I would also say that also, I think it's some stats, don't quote me on this, but I think something like 40% of associates will stay on at one of their placements.
Okay.
So if you've, it's obviously, you just spent 6 months, at 2 different companies. If you get on well with them, and if you've had a good, and if they see value in you, which generally they tend to, because if you're on the On Purpose program, you've done some interesting stuff and you're the right kind of person to be able to go in there, then you will have a conversation with them about that. So some of my cohort have stayed on at their current placements. I know a bunch of others have done that historically as well. So there's an opportunity there if you want to do that too.
Awesome. I hope that helps, Raheem, answer your question. There are so many opportunities in the space at the moment, so it's a really exciting time to be.
Well.
Yeah, I should plug Escape the City there. We have hundreds of jobs in the purpose-driven space on our job board, so do check that out. But Tom, thank you so much for your time. Felt like we covered a lot there and answered some really great questions from an engaged audience. So hopefully that's given you guys plenty of food for thought about the On Purpose program. Their associate program deadline is the 16th of May, so you still have a good 10 days or so to consider your application and get that into them. You can find out further information at onpurpose.org. And if you are looking for other purposeful roles, then you can find them on escapethecity.org as well. Tom, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Great speaking with you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And good luck everyone that's considering applying. Do feel free to reach out to any of the On Purpose fellows, because everyone's always happy to kind of jump on a call and have a chat and give any more advice they have. So don't be afraid to reach out to all of us. We're a relatively social bunch. So, and there's lots of them. There's lots of us now, I think. So yeah, amazing. Thank you so much.
Great stuff. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.